Hey everyone, and welcome back. So before we get into the technical details of web scraping with Python, we are first going to get some background and context around web scraping. So in this video, we're going to talk about what web scraping is, what are some things it's useful for, and some ethical concerns and challenges that we might encounter on the way. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start off, what is web scraping? Well, at its most general, web scraping is simply the process of extracting data from web content. But the internet is, after all, a very big place, with many different types of content, such as video, text, live web applications, and more. And scraping can look very different depending on the context. Scraping can also vary widely in its scale, from small-scale individual level scraping that we're going to be learning in this course, to more or less industrial level web crawlers that can map essentially the entire internet. One thing that unifies most forms of web scraping, though, is its basis in HTML. Since the vast majority of web content is structured in one way or another by HTML, web scraping usually involves parsing of HTML documents. And this is exactly the type of web scraping that we're going to undertake in this course. So that's a basic definition of what web scraping is, but why would we want to do it? Well, we can think of the internet as essentially one massive database, and all of the different types of content that we can find on it, from text to video to code, can be considered data. But the problem for us as programmers and data scientists is that the vast majority of content on the internet is what we call unstructured. That is to say, it's not usually laid out in such a way that's easy for us as programmers or data scientists to perform analysis on with computers. In fact, most data on the internet is designed to be read by humans. If we want to be able to take advantage of this vast trove of data, we need some way to aggregate and structure it so that we can make it useful. And this is one of the fundamental tasks of web scraping. These days, it has become more common for sites to provide an API to feed data to interested programmers directly. But even so, many sites don't do this, and APIs themselves can often be quite limited. As you might imagine, there are a whole host of real-world applications that web data can be very useful in. For instance, say you're a data analyst for a business. Scraping could be very useful to aggregate information about a market that you're in, or even to come up with statistics about a competing company who might not otherwise make that information available via an API. There are many academic domains where web scraping could be useful as well, particularly in the social sciences for studying things like social media and online interaction. In a similar vein, web scraping has proven useful in journalistic settings, where aggregating data from many different news sources or social media feeds can create insights that would otherwise be fairly difficult to obtain by hand. And honestly, no matter the field, it's likely that there's some web content out there that would be useful to you. The potential applications of web scraping are really as wide as the internet itself. Finally, if you're an aspiring data scientist and looking for projects or portfolio pieces, web scraping can be a great way to curate a unique data set that nobody else has used before. Finally, no overview of web scraping is complete without a discussion of ethics. More so than many other types of programming, web scraping invites some serious ethical problems. Fundamentally, any data on the internet was put there by someone with a particular intention in mind, and having that data aggregated en masse by web crawlers is usually not one of them. Furthermore, a poorly written web scraping program can actually cause serious damage to servers, usually by initiating too many requests at once, similar to an unintentional DDoS attack. We have to keep in mind at all times that the data we see on the internet was put there by other people, and that server infrastructure has limits and is quite expensive. As we dig into the technicalities of web scraping later on in the course, we'll learn some techniques and conventions for mitigating our impact as web scrapers so that the whole web ecosystem can stay healthy. And finally, I'd like to leave you with some examples of just how powerful the data that's stored on the web can be. SeeAlso.org is a repository of data visualizations that were created just with data freely available on Wikipedia. So if you want to get excited about the potential of web scraping, take a look around on this site if you have time. So I hope you found this overview of web scraping to be useful and informative, and I'll see you in the next one.